flat, slightly lift the handle. Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. My name's Mike Pease and I want to share my passion for wood turning by showing you some tips, tricks, techniques, and projects on wood turning. So if this is something you're interested in, please subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you won't miss future videos. Have you ever had a bad catch with a bowl scraper? It's pretty scary. I want to show you 10 tips to help you with your conventional bowl scraping to make you a better turner. The discussion that follows is based on a traditional high-speed steel M2 scraper. This video is going to be a bit long, so I couldn't cover everything. I'm going to be covering the topic of shear scraping and negative rake scrapers on a future video. And I want to make 2 points. Number one is slicing wood with a conventional gouge is going to almost always leave a better surface than scraping, but sometimes you just need to resort to a scraper. Number two, scraping can reduce your sanding, and who wants to spend time sanding if they don't have to? Now there's a number of inexpensive tools you get, and I see this mostly with tools from China that come with some type of preservative or gunk on it. So you want to take some type of solvent, clean that gunk off before you bother to sharpen it. You can see that it is coming off. Little elbow grease, but get that solvent off on all sides because it's going to interfere with the sharpening of the tool, and it's going to interfere with it sliding. Here you can really see it sliding across the tool rest. And I actually found that lacquer thinner seemed to be a better solvent than mineral spirits. A lot less elbow grease. And wear latex gloves. Okay, now we're ready to either sharpen this tool or to use it. Of course, most tools I'd say revitalize it. There's very few tools you get out of the box, with the exception of American-made tools such as D-Way or Carter & Sons or Thompson that probably are sharp as you get them. But the rest of them, they need either sharpening or modification to make them suitable for use. Now there's any number of tools, scrapers, skews, and others that they're just badly designed or finished. And an example, you can expect it of I think this Harbor Freight skew, but it can be greatly improved by rounding over the bottom so it will move easier without dinging your tool rest. By dressing this up most easily is done with a sander, as shown in this little video clip where I was working on making a scraper. I need to take off these very sharp edges, and I'm just going to hit on the bottom, and I'm just going to do that on a belt sander. Let me clean it up a little bit, get some of the product. Example of a quality tool manufacturer, Robert Sorby, that I feel like ought to be ashamed of themselves because this edge is so sharp on the bottom where it slides over the tool rest. And there's no reason for it to be that sharp when, again, that bottom edge that slides over the tool rest ought to be, the edge ought to be knocked off on both sides to make it a little easier to slide and not be as sharp. And again, the belt sander is the easiest way, although, you know, if you don't have a belt sander, you can take a grit, say 120, and just work on it. You can improve the quality of this by removing all these milling marks that come, just to give that surface a smoother, polished finish before you sharpen it. Some of the old-time woodworkers, far more experienced in this than I am, that have worked with plane irons, but I think you can see the milling marks here that prevent this edge here from being as smooth as it could be. And frankly, the marks are more noticeable on this tool than they are on the top of my table saw, with the exception of a few scratches. So to smooth that out, we're going to get some 600 grit sandpaper on this flat surface, turn it over and on the top, and we're just simply going to rub this out. keeping it perfectly flat, and just don't take a little elbow grease. So it's worth the time and effort. This is the biggest improvement you can make on your scrapers, is getting rid of those milling marks on the top to get that edge where the top and the front bevel are just perfectly joined. So for this bodger scraper, I measured the angle. It's 75 degrees, which I think is a pretty good angle, somewhere between 70 to 80 degrees. If you don't have one of these angle measuring tools, they're very handy. They're easily purchased from a big box store, or you can order off Amazon for less than 10 bucks. So the 75 degrees is, I find, is a pretty reasonable angle, and if you do all of your scrapers at the same angle, it makes things easier. And we're gonna move off of the coarse wheel and go to the fine wheel to sharpen. And I'm going to go back to my robo rest. I like this robo rest I got from Reed Gray. I'll have a link in the underneath the video description if you're interested. But it's a luxury. You don't have to have that. Using the normal Wolverine platform, what I do find handy is to make a little template to replicate it. So decide what your angle is going to be. 70, 75, 80, doesn't make a lot of difference. Pick one you like. I'm using 75 to standardize. You can measure it. And then just transfer that measurement and make you a little template that'll just make it real easy to set that platform every time you use a scraper. Okay, that's pretty close, and we're simply going to just sharpen it by rotating it around. Just finger pressure flat, keeping it on the table. And that gives us a nice bevel. That raises a little bit of a burr. We're going to eliminate that burr with a diamond or CBN hone. If you don't have this, you can always use 60 grit sandpaper on a flat surface like your bedway on your lathe or your table saw. But just hone that burr off. Doesn't take just a moment. Now we're going to turn that burr again. And for a lot of folks, you can feel that burr, that might be adequate. Now, even better than the burr off of the grinder, if I go back to the grinder and run this across one more time, it'll bring up a burr that'll be even better than it was before because of this more polished surface. But if you just take your CBN or diamond hone and lay it flat against the bevel and just bring it around flat on the bevel, maybe one or two strokes, doesn't take much, and you can actually raise a very fine burr. Raising it, this burr raised with a hone will be even stronger and finer than one that comes off of the grinder. All right, let's give it a trial run. First, I'm going to hold this thing in my arm like this as an extension. Lay it on the tool rest. This may not be running true. Now this is a finishing tool, so we're not planning on bulk removal, and we're touching it very softly. I'm going to lift the handle just slightly. And you can see we're getting some very fine shaving, so it's working well. Alright, now we're coming to the point of how to use this bowl gouge safely. And tip number 5 is use it with the handle up. So you got to get the tool rest up a little bit, so when you drop the handle, you'll be able to come across. Now notice my hand grip. That becomes an extension of the scraper. We're only going to cut in the bottom third. You start getting out here on the wall, you just don't do it. We're just going to cut out here cut in the bottom third. Flat. Slightly lift the handle. We mentioned rule number 6. You're only going to cut in the bottom third, and that's where the end grain is. That's where most of your ripples and transition marks are. Normally you don't have a big problem here. You might have a few little tool marks, but a few tiny little ridges. They'll come out with sanding. Down at the bottom it tends to be much more difficult. Rule number 7. Never come out here with a conventional bowl scraper flat on the tool rest and come out near the rim. Bad things are going to happen. Just don't do it. You get too much vibration, you're going to develop a harmonic that'll flex and it'll explode. Rule number 8. Very light pressure. You're not taking out a lot of wood, you're just cutting ripples along the top. So very light pressure. Richard Raffin says the amount of pressure you put on a scraper is equivalent to the pressure you put on your hands underneath a hot air dryer. Rule number 8, you're only going to engage about 1/8 or 3/8 inch surface of the gouge. More than that and you're going to get a leveraged catch. You don't want to bevel where you're going to engage the entire bevel. You only want 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in contact. You should be getting shavings. If you're getting dust, your tool's not sharp enough, go back and sharpen it. You can see that'll clean it up quite a bit. You'll still have a rough surface that needs some sanding because of that end grain, side grain, but you're going to get rid of the ripples. I feel a little bit of a high spot here. One technique is when you have a high spot, don't mark the pen on the high spot because it'll go away quickly. Put the pencil mark on each end of the high spot. This is a Glenn Lucas tip. Again, your burr is only going to last about 30 seconds, so you're going to have to rehone it frequently. If you have any questions or comments about scraping, please leave them in the comment section below. And just a reminder, again, I'm going to have a future video on shear scraping and negative rake scrapers. One way you can help out my channel is checking out my Amazon shop. You can find that link under the description for the video. And if you buy something, I'll get a small commission. Thanks for watching, and y'all come back here.